All right, so our first reader tonight is Sandra K. Wilcoxon. She is an artist, poet, and author. Her new book, Summertime Memoir of a Missionary Wife, is her mother's story depicting the family's years as Methodist missionaries in Argentina during the 1960s. Following a long career as a nonprofit executive and consultant, she's now retired and lives in Aurora with her husband and their pets. So I asked each of the authors who is an influential author or book, and she said Isabella Allende. Please welcome her to the stage.
And I have props. As he said, thank you. As he said, we lived in Argentina when I was a tiny little girl, and on the cover of the book is this mate gourd and bombilla, which is how they drank this special tea called yerba mate, like that. And that's featured heavily in the first story. So I have two different excerpts I'm going to read from Summertime Memoir of a Missionary Wife. This one is called Isabel Chara. So Mom and Dad met and courted through college, marrying during their senior year. Mom worked as a nurse while Dad went to seminary in Dallas. After language training in Costa Rica, they took me and my brothers to serve as Methodist missionaries in Argentina, helping to support growing churches. In 1964, we had all just moved to our second posting, Santiago del Estero, in the north part of the country. One morning, I answered a knock at the front door. A short, stout man with dark brown hair stood before me. "Good morning, Senora. I would like to speak with your husband." "Yes, let me take you to him. Come with me. He's in his office." I led him to the street side office door in the garage and tapped on it. Claire opened the door and welcomed the man. "Come in." I left and returned to serve them coffee and cookies and went back to my work. Later, Claire found me. The gentleman was Isabel Chara's husband. I had called on Isabel at their home while he was at work. Mr. Chara politely explained to me, "I do not want any man to be alone with my wife. You may call on her while I am there, or your wife is there. I have no interest in religion, but I do not deny my wife the privilege of choice." The visit was cordial and necessarily brief, as he was on his way to work. "Claire, who is Mrs. Chara? Do I know her?" "She's active in the La Banda church. I don't think you know her. She attends faithfully. I visited her as I made pastoral calls. She received me with the offer of a mate, which is customarily shared among close friends. She was active in the Salvation Army when they had a pastor. When the Salvation Army church became inactive, she turned to the Methodist church. She participates in meetings and is very spiritually minded and social. She lives in a poor barrio and does custom sewing for people. Her husband works at a furniture store. You'll get to know her at church." "How can you minister to women at home then? It would mean a considerable time investment if all visits to women require both you and me." "Well, this is a first in my experience. My pastoral calls in Tucumán were with people who knew me or expected me." After much discussion, finally, I conceded, "I guess I will have to visit in instances such as that of the Charas. I hope they are rare, because I have to take care of my own household." So later, Mom met Mrs. Chara at church, and they arranged to visit that week. On Wednesday after breakfast, I went to market and did a bit of housework before lunchtime. When the children left for school, I boarded the bus to visit Isabel in La Banda. The bus passed through Santiago with frequent stops. It took an hour to arrive at the barrio. What will Isabel say about her husband's visit with Claire? After abrazos y besos, hugs and kisses, I sat down in a wooden chair. As Isabel prepared the mate, she filled me in. Because of the local reputation of the Catholic clergy, my husband was concerned about maintaining my reputation, since it could affect his standing in the community. I know 2 married women who bore their priest children. I had heard similar stories about Costa Rican priests when we lived there. She paused, holding a spoonful of sugar above the mate. Would you like sugar? Yes, please. I accepted the mate and sipped the yerba tea through the tube. From my understanding of the Bible, I don't think sex should be outside of marriage. I understand the inconsistency of the sense of morality since he has a mistress. He has a mistress? And Isabel knows about it? She doesn't seem particularly upset. I finished sipping the bittersweet yerba and handed the mate gourd back to her. She prepared it for herself and poured boiling water over the tube. She began sipping. He has a mistress? I was curious. It was a totally new experience for me to talk with a woman about her husband's mistress. Yes, he does. How long have you known? Oh, for many years. Do you know who she is? Yes, I do. She finished sipping and held the spoon above the sugar. More sugar? Yes, please. Does he see her often? Frequently. Once again, she filled the mate with hot water and poured it over the stem of the tube and handed it to me. Do you know when he goes to see her? I sipped. Yes, I can tell. He showers, shaves, splashes on cologne, and gets all dressed up. How do you feel about that? I handed the gourd back to her. I prefer he stay with the family. She prepared the mate for herself and sipped. Do you stay home while he is out with her? Oh, not always, she sipped. What would you do if you saw them while you were out? Oh, I would smile, link my arm around his elbow and say, honey, the children are waiting. And I expect he would leave us be. Oh, I expect she would leave us be. She prepared the mate for me. More sugar? And just a bit, please. Help me understand. Why? How do you? The Apostle Paul advised Christians who were yoked with someone outside the faith that the unbeliever might be saved because of his faithful believing wife. It's stated in 2 Corinthians 7:14 and 1 Peter 3:1. That's true. I understand, I nodded my head. Thank you for sharing. It was clearly an instruction from her Bible. Until now, for me, those texts didn't have any bearing on my life. For her, they were a guide. When I finished my turn, I said thank you and handed her the mate. It was time for me to depart. We exchanged abrazos y besos, and I returned home to my family. I was a wiser woman, with our unforgettable conversation ringing in my head. So the second reading is called Summertime, and it helps explain the title of the book. In 1966, as we packed and prepared to leave Argentina, Mom also had to finish her music studies at the conservatory. It was especially important to her as she had recently suffered a painful episode brought on by indifference of the women at church. Monday, July 4th, I reported to the conservatory for my final examination of voice. My final exam. I'm always nervous before a performance. I want to do well. 3 teachers sat before me as I sang Summertime from Porgy and Bess. They rose to their feet, clapping their hands and cheering, bravo, bravo. Would you do us the favor of singing for the Independence Day celebration on July 9th? The head of the conservatory asked. That's the day we mark the end of our school year. Oh my goodness, what a surprise. It would be my pleasure and privilege to sing for you. Elated, I joyfully accepted their invitation. Students and faculty always brought goodies for a bake sale for conservatory celebrations. Filled with joy and goodwill, I baked a Betty Crocker chiffon cake to take. It had become my specialty. It was light, sweet, and pretty with no decoration in comparison to the layered sponge cakes commonly brought. That afternoon, I sang Summertime and was asked to sing it again and again and again. How wonderful. They like it. I was proud, and I knew I performed well. I gave the score of Summertime to the conservatory, which thrilled my voice teacher. She had helped me tremendously during our 2 years together. Leaving, I went to see how the bake sale was going and to retrieve my cake plate. I was met by the director and a couple of teachers who had worried expressions. Oh, I must apologize for what happened, the director hurriedly explained. There were so many people who wanted your cake that, instead of selling the cake whole, we sold your cake by the piece. We hope you don't mind. I was all smiles. I don't mind at all. I'm glad they liked it. It was good to hear. I felt appreciated, uplifted, and successful, in sharp contrast to my feelings about my church ministry. So in closing, the very last words in her book sets the stage for the next couple readers. As we left Argentina, she writes, we left behind the fragile instability of Argentina and its political and military turmoil, spiraling inflation and strikes. Waiting for us was the longed-for security of the United States, even with its airline strike, racial conflicts, and Vietnam anti-war demonstrations. Thank you.